We want you to meet your neighbor in Lubbock. We're here in the hub city, and we want you to meet your neighbor, and they are Vicki and Dalton Jantzen. And I want to know why you live in Lubbock. Why don't you live in Muleshoe?
You know, Lubbock, it's all about the people for us. We moved into Texas back in the late 80s, and we arrived in Lubbock when our kids said, we want to go to school at Tech. And we said, we're a family, we're going to move together. And we came here in the early 90s, and we were here for a while, and we moved back just in February. We were gone for 15 years, but we got back as fast as we could.
Well, that's good. You still could move to Muleshoe, you know. Vicki, what do you and Dalton do?
My husband and I are part of a ministry that serves the body of Christ. We offer services of leadership development and training. We are encouraged to help people be spiritually healthy, grow in the Lord, not only just be birthed with salvations, but be discipled into strong, healthy Christians.
And do you have a name for your ministry?
Yes, it's based on the parable of the sower. It's called 30, 60, 100 Ministries.
30, 60, 100 Ministries.
That's right.
And based out of Texas and in Lubbock, the hub city. Now listen, what are you going to do on your next mission trip? Where are you headed this week?
We're headed Thursday to Imphal, Manipur province in India. And then from there, we'll be going to Jaigan, which is just about 350 miles away from where the earthquake was in Nepal just this last week.
And so now the earthquake and you going there has nothing to do with the reason you're going to that area.
It's the consequence of us arriving someplace. We're heading, the earth is shaking. Now, we're going to teach people who are pastors in the local church. So, and these guys are pastors who have been ministering there, and we support them in their growth in spiritual health. So we have a workshop series. We'll be teaching 2 workshops in both locations. In Imphal, we'll teach in English, and we're told there's 35 to 50 pastors who will be gathered for that meeting. And then in Jaigan, it's going to be translated into Nepali, and there will be 300 people gathering for that, which is big. That's the biggest we've ever taught in a group.
Is that right? Now, these are church leaders?
These are pastors of churches in the area.
And so now, where was the last place that you went?
Ukraine. We were in Lviv and Kyiv, Ukraine in November of last year.
And so I guess wherever you go, you sort of shake the earth.
You know, we just say, okay, God, you're going to do something great. So if you want to rattle stuff up a little bit so that it's movable and moldable, then okay, we'll go.
I'm not sure we want to get that information out because then people will stop inviting us to come.
We've always gotten the invitations before the
That's
event.
right, Vicki. So, Vicki, is it working out well that you are here in Lubbock? Are you enjoying it and you're being able to travel out of Lubbock well?
Yes, you know, it was like coming back home to come back to Texas. We were in New Mexico, and we love our friends in New Mexico, but Texas always felt like home. And to be in Lubbock is just a real blessing. There's a wonderful group of friends and acquaintances that we are so blessed to be a part of and have a relationship with.
And so we met our Jantzen friends through Susan Birdsong Landers and her husband, Nick Landers, who both were reared right here in the Mill Memorial City. And so that makes it extra special for us.
And Nick is on our board. He is the treasurer on our board, of ministry board.
And of course, Nicky Landers, as you probably remember him, was a math teacher at Muleshoe High School, and then he became a CPA, and that was in Albuquerque. And so he is now retired. And so I'm sure he's a wonderful addition to your board.
Nick is awesome because it's our desire to do everything we do above board. And Nick has been so wonderful to make sure we stay on the straight and narrow. And he helps us with our accountability, not only fiscally, but morally and ethically.
When we were founding the ministry, one of the first things we needed to do was because it's a nonprofit and we had to do the 501c3 process, which includes incorporating in the state. And we said, we really need a good accountant. Who do you know? And we were told that Nick is among the number 1 and 2 top nonprofit accountants in the state. And we said, okay, well, we'll go visit him. And when we talked to him, we said, Nick, we're going to be doing a ministry.
And this is how you met Nick.
That's how we met. We didn't know Nick. We were sent to his office. So we set an appointment. We said, Nick, we're going to be working with pastors, particularly, and people in leadership roles. And we know that it's a great temptation for them to maybe fudge the books or, just be a little creative sometimes if ends don't meet. And we want to set a goal of being at squeaky clean, not just clean, but squeaky clean. And he said, okay. And we found out later on, Susan told us that he went home that night and he said, I got some clients that I want to clone. Not often do they tell me they want to not just be clean, but squeaky clean. Let's be totally above board. So that's how we founded the ministry, and that's how we met Nick and Susan.
Wonderful. That's a great story, and it makes us feel good because he's a hometown product.
Hometown product, and he speaks highly of Muleshoe, as does Susan. They love their home.
Now, tell me, after you came to Lubbock, did you miss New Mexico? And why did you leave New Mexico, and what were you doing in Albuquerque area?
In Albuquerque, we've been doing the ministry full-time since about 2007.
I see.
Prior to that, I was a consultant, and I'd get on airplanes and fly to places and be the man with the answers, and then I'd come home, and she was a realtor for a period of time. But we ran a retreat center up in the East Mountains outside of the city. For 8 years. Outside of Albuquerque. But we came here because we've been at a plateau in the ministry, and our board has said we really been waiting on the Lord over the last couple of years. What is the next step? And we had a strong sensation that the Lord wanted to help us branch out a little bit further than we were. And in Albuquerque, we've taught a lot of our friends the workshops that we do, and we do strategic planning and coaching and mentoring also. So we facilitate teams, and we've done this for many years there in the city. And we have one other magnetic attraction here to Texas, and that is we've got grandkids just about 4 hours away. And for us to get to them, we'd have to spend the night in Amarillo because we don't do 12-hour drives any longer. That's just out of our desire. So
I understand.
We can now get to them if we want to see them on weekends or something.
Where are they?
They're in Aledo, Texas, and then we have a daughter and son-in-law in Arlington who are in process of adoption right now.
Wonderful. Now, back to your ministry. So, do you just work in churches, interdenominational churches around the world, or do you work in the United States?
We work in the United States. We've been all across North America teaching, and we particularly don't affiliate with only one denomination, because if we're part of this group, then that group says, oh, wow, we could have used your help, but since you belong to them, you don't belong to us. The word denominate, there's that math, right? Denominate, divide, and separate.
I never thought about that.
It's
You're
a denominator.
right.
It splits us up, and the body of Christ is one. So we stay 1 or 2 clicks back from that separation, and we work with all kinds of different denominational groups. So we've been in charismatic churches and Baptist churches and Methodist churches and Presbyterians and Congregationalists and a Reformed church where they hark back all the way to Martin Luther. But it doesn't matter, because we're teaching the truth that goes above all the divisions, and we don't, it's not the separation because of this doctrine or that.
Now, do you ever work with a business?
We do. A lot of our work is with business leaders, in particularly ones who are saying, we want this business to serve as a means of increasing God's kingdom. I don't want just to be a man who makes a lot of money, or my wife and I don't want our business to be something that we get rich or that we feel good about ourselves, but we want to see God's kingdom advanced because of this. And we work with them, particularly in strategic planning. Also, I was a business coach in Fortune 500 companies and did strategic planning at the national level with some very large companies. And so we've worked with guys and helped them to look at things not so much from the viewpoint of, okay, what's fiscally responsible here, but what's the Spirit of God speaking that we could do in this particular situation?
How wonderful. That is just grand. Now tell us about some of the places that you all have lived and ministered.
Well, as newlyweds, we went to Colombia, South America as missionaries, and we were there for 16 years.
Now, while you were there, did you have children?
I did. I had 3 children. I had 2 on the mission station with midwives, and our middle son refused to be born there, so I had to be evacuated.
This is deep in the jungle. This was in the southernmost part of Colombia. It was 1 degree above the equator, and it was a long ways from nowhere.
Oh, my goodness.
So it was quite an experience. And we were there for 16.
Well, I want to know where they evacuated you to.
Well, okay. Well, what they did was, at the time, the mission station had a single-engine airplane, 4-seater. They took out the 2 back seats, or the back seat, and the midwife and I were on the floor in case I had the baby. And my husband and the pilot were in the front. And we had to fly over the Andes Mountains to Bogota, the capital, where they had an ambulance waiting to take me to the hospital.
And you really had him in the hospital.
I was able to have him in the hospital, and this was after 36 hours of labor.
Because this was your 3rd child?
No, he was our middle son.
The middle one, okay.
Yes. It took, we had to wait because we were in the remote part of the jungle. We had no electricity, no running water. And so we had to wait for daylight for the plane to be able to take off on the airstrip. So I spent the whole night in labor just waiting, praying, hoping the Lord would deliver him there, but he had other plans. So we had a little plane ride.
Oh, what an exciting one.
It was exciting, yes. But like the scriptures say, after the baby comes, you forget about all that. And we were actually ready to have a 3rd one.
Wonderful. And so now, after your time in Colombia, where did you go?
We were able to return to a Christian campground in Georgia to help get acclimated. They opened their doors for us because we were a family of 5 who had never lived in the States as a family. And so they opened the doors and helped us get acclimated.
What was the hardest thing to that experience?
Well, I guess I can say this on TV, to remember to flush the toilet. Because
oh, that's a good one.
There were no flush toilets where we lived, so.
No plumbing. And also that we could turn the lights on and off when it got dark.
And we take those things for granted.
We sure do. And for our children, they did a crash course in acclimation because everything was new to them. Sure. Back then, football was soccer, and it wasn't as popular as it is today, soccer, here in the States. So when the kids would say, "Would you like to go play some football?" And they'd go, "Sure." And they were thinking they were going to play soccer. Yeah. So
then after that experience, where did you go?
We felt like we really wanted to get back into ministering, and the doors opened up for us to move to El Paso, Texas, and we were able to work with a church in Juarez because we have the Spanish language. It was a real blessing to get back into that culture because after living in the Hispanic culture for that many years.
Now, what year was that approximately?
That was right before, 88. It was right before we moved to Lubbock. It was about 3 years. We were there for about 3 years.
So Juarez has really changed since that time, I'm sure.
Yes, and we've heard God's doing great things in Juarez too. So we're really grateful for that and grateful for the time we had to be there. And then our children came to us and said, we would like to go to Tech. Would it be possible to go to Tech? And we still weren't used to moving separatingly. It didn't be separated. Yeah. So we all came to Lubbock because there was a church affiliation that we were a part of also in Lubbock. So we were able to join in with that group. And our kids were able to go to Tech. And we were there until God called us to Albuquerque. And then that was when the ministry really developed. That was the trigger to the development of the ministry was 9/11.
Oh, really?
Yes, yes. And I'll let Dalton tell you about that because it was when the Lord spoke to him about what we should be doing.
Dalton, tell us about when God spoke to you.
I was consulting with a number of companies, and in this particular week, I was in Montana on the backside of Yellowstone in a platinum and palladium mine about half a mile underground. And I was coaching supervisors, and these two guys were talking outside of the room that I was in coaching, and I heard them saying war and the Pentagon burning, and I go, what is going on? And they said, we're at war, don't you know? And then so I called the office in Albuquerque and found out what was happening and finished my work day that day and went home that night and watched the towers falling on TV. You remember how they played that again and again? And I said, God, Vicki's a realtor. I'm a consultant. We have a Bible study in our home. I'll preach for the pastor once in a while. I play a trombone, a praise band, but are we really doing all we should be doing for the kingdom? And I felt like he said, no, there's more. And I said, well, what is it? And he took off running, and I had to start chasing him to find out what that was. But the thing that came to mind was we needed to do something to help people who are serving the Lord and they get burned out in the process. They devote themselves so strongly, they cease taking care of their own spiritual health and welfare. They begin to be caring about other people so much that they don't protect their own relationship, and they end up burning out. So I went home, talked to her about it, and we said, well, let's pray. We don't know what to do. We had gathered some friends, and we began praying. By the end, so that's September 11th, right? By the end of that year, we had formed a website, and we went.
And now tell them the name of your website.
Our website today is 306100.org. It's the numbers 306100.org. We formed a different named website at that time, and we began the process of incorporating, and the Lord began to lead us to provide this kind of service. And we realized pretty soon we needed to have a place to do it because we had a little 1,200 square foot home, and we couldn't really help people rest in downtown. So we started a year-long process of finding a place, and we ended up creating a retreat center up in the East Mountains where we worked for about 8 years.
And so if someone is thinking, gee, I'd like for them to come to my business or my church or my community and help us, how can they contact you, Dalton?
We have a phone number. The easiest way is get onto the website at 306100.org and contact.
The numbers 306100.org.
Yes. And you can use that website, and there's a contact us link. Do that. My email is Dalton, Dalton, at 306100.org. Vicki's is Vicki at 306100.org. So either of those addresses, email addresses, and we'll respond to that. Sometimes when we're out of the country, our cell phones don't work. Right. So it's the best way is to use email because you're always collecting email. That's really the best way to reach us.
You're going to be gone starting later this week.
We'll leave Thursday.
And that will be the very end of April.
Last day of April.
We'll very end.
19th of May.
19th of May, you'll be back in Lubbock. Yeah. But they can still contact you through the email or the website, yes. Either one.
Yes. And we love to come and find out what it is that is their need, so we can sit down and talk first. And we do these things on a by faith basis here in the United States. So we don't have a set number. You give this and we'll do that. It's really what's the Lord leading. So, and we've found that God's really, He speaks to His people, and we find that there are places that could not afford to get the kind of service we provide because it is the kind of service that's provided world class, and we do that as a free will offering basis. So it's available to those who are in need.
How wonderful. We have been introducing you on Meet Your Neighbor, brought to you by United Supermarket with Dalton and Vicki Jantzen. They live right here in Lubbock, Texas, and they want to be of service through the Lord to you.